to understand just a little about the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps. The Corps has quite a long history dating back to the British colonial era, during the period which members of the Corps used to support the military in times of war, and thereafter government has continued with engagements, better ways of improving the system until 2003, when the government of Nigeria securitized the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps as a full-fledged security organization. And so, by way of trying to improve itself, the Corps had been looking for different ways, because by that act, it was amended in 2007, which now gave the Corps the powers to even prosecute. And by way of trying to improve on its operations, the Corps has been looking for ways by which they will protect the critical national assets and infrastructure, which by Nigeria's national security design has made it a lead agency, which my mentor, the Commandant General, always prefer. We call it a coordinating agency. But what the Office of the National Security Advisor has given us in the national security document is that of lead. And so in protecting national assets and infrastructure, which there are very many, schools are part of. On assumption of office as the Commandant General, on the first day of March 2021, he was tasked to remember that schools are part of national assets, and so he should come up with a better strategy on how to improve the school's security. And this happened at the same time when, just in February of that same year, the UNICEF had published a report on out-of-school children in millions. So this took the Commandant General's mind back to his blueprint. Before he took the mantle of leadership, he had a blueprint and he promised to improve on some of those things. And so there was this need to go into the schools. Why is it that the schools were having good number of out-of-school children? What is responsible? What are the threats? What are those issues? And so he said, educational problems can only be resolved through educational means. So there was therefore a need to establish a scientific, empirical foundation to whatever the Corps is going to do as far as issues of safety and schools is concerned. And that led into what you see on the slide, a report, a vulnerability study report. This report, for want of time, as you can see on the screen, out of 17,148 schools that have physical security presence, those security personnel were actually mostly untrained. That's the truth. And we also found certain things that could not be published for security reasons as well. However, a total number of 62,271 schools were not secured in any form at all. That now raises a question. As at the time of registering schools, was there any considerations to the security environmental design, where you now determine where an ideal school should be located, or it could be situated anywhere? But that's not what the focus, and so we focus on the issues we discovered. And so the Commandant General went straight into formulating recommendations as to proactive measures that will actually define the strategy of the Corps. This was done at a time shortly after this report. Mr. President constituted a committee, and I think my daddy is here, the Minister of Interior. He assumed that leadership of that chairman because this is an internal security arrangement and it has to do with the core mandate of the Corps. The Minister of Education was always there. Minister of Education, the member, the DSS, the military, and the civil defense were sitting at the Ministry of Interior before you took over, sir. So it was at that point that a decision was taken. The Minister of Finance to come up with a strategy, and that led to the formation of the Financing Safe School Secretariat by the Minister of Finance. This I am saying in summary because there have been various efforts from civil society organizations in collaboration with the Ministry of Education at federal, state, and local government authorities, educational authorities. However, for us, from the perspective of security, we have a way to, come in, and that way was through this empirical foundation we established. And that led for us to submit a work plan to that secretariat, which informed what we are currently doing. It is no longer news that all the parts of our geopolitical zones, you hear us that we are here today, tomorrow we are there, all in the name of trying to build trust, which is key, the community engagement, so that people will now believe more in what we are doing, and we are doing this in a scientific manner. When you go to the website of the center, which our daddy, when he took over, he came to the center and actually instructed us on how to improve on certain things and would keep in. So I want to tell you that the Ministry of Communications has actually given us our subdomain, and today you can have that in what we call our security ecosystem map. We are also, I thought you want to clap for the Honorable Minister. We are also working in collaboration with those that since 2003 participated actively in the Communication Act, sir, which defined the role of the emergency line 112. Because the center is a product of the Financing Safe School and in line with the strategy of the Commandant General, we have engaged conversation with the consultant in charge of the 112 on how we revive it and how to integrate that into the workings of the center. And as we are waiting for other briefs to be perfected so that we go into full implementation, we are hoping that within the next 2 weeks, we'll bring the consultant before you with all the safe school softwares that have been designed for tests. Because the minister, sir, looking at your profile, we believe that we cannot do anything in IT without your consent. And that is why we shall be doing that, sir. So today is very critical because, sir, in the course of doing this, we've realized that there are so many gaps. School security is much more complicated than the other time I mentioned to you. After this survey, the Commandant General went in straight to create 2 platforms, the Rapid Response Squad, the Female Squad, so that they will be going to school for advocacy and some of those security talks so that they interact with students and teachers. And we now discover that in the end user's policy, that was not too appropriate. And the Commandant General, being also an academician who is always learning, has to now take a decision to say, look, you can only go to school on request, and that has to be done. Those cumulatively inform the decision to come up with the National Safe School Response Coordination Center. So today, with this approach, we've been able to successfully resolve issues of attack that I would say at least 48. And some of these issues, just like I said, that are so conflict. I give you an example of one. Some boys wrote to a school demanding that the school be closed down. And this request, it was a very serious one. Now the Ministry of Education quickly sent this to us. When we delve into the matter, we now discover that the land upon which the school was situated was a land in dispute. And so no amount of military and paramilitary weapons, no amount of grammar that you will apply there to come up with a solution. And what happened was for the Commander General to decide to engage peace and conflict resolution team to engage with that community and the schools. And that was how the matter died. Now they are negotiating on how to solve the issue of that land first. But because the school was there, it looks as if it was something that was new. For somebody just attacking the school, we trace to know the reasons for informed decisions to be made. Now today, some of those gaps have been in the area of proper coordination. Because in the Safe School project of Nigeria, it is not a sole responsibility of security agencies where, sir, you operate. Education, the Federal Ministry of Education and Education at all levels are the end users of whatever you do in schools. And so if you are taking any decision, you do that. You have to inform them and bring them on board. And that was why, on the 13th of February, 2023, when the then minister came to the headquarters to flag off the center in what was initially called National School Security and Emergency Center at the point of flag off. You know, when it's flag off, anything could be said. And so what happened was, immediately after, the Commandant General set up a committee that drafted an SOP, the standard operating procedure, for the workings of the center and a design as to how the center will work in collaboration with states and local government, because when we are talking about schools, they are in states and local governments. That has been taken care of. This standard operating procedure was validated through a scientific means called validation workshop. All security agencies were represented. The civil society organizations were represented, as you could see in the appendix page of the SOP before you. And we then went ahead to produce a handbook for the center. Why? Because there is need for students, teachers, and all that are involved in the schools to understand what it means. However, because when it sounds new, sometimes people tend to believe that schools are not part of the critical national assets and infrastructure, which the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps has a jurisdiction over. However, we've learned from the military through exercise Haskell that there is need to work together. We learned from the Nigerian Police Force through advanced detective course of the need to work together. Today, we are learning from the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps through the National Safe School Response Coordination Center as to the need to work together. It is for this reason that, sir, for want of time, I leave the security ecosystem map of the center, ranging from the organogram of the center, which has to do with what education gave us. Because when you are talking about security, you interact with the school security established first by the Ministry of Education before you could do anything. So we've been in touch with them. However, in all this, we need to present this center before you in this public manner where everybody has equal chances of seeing what it should be. It is on this note that, sir, we've also invited the father of interagency cooperation, coordination and collaboration. Professor Tajuddin, he is here with us. He will be here among with other ones, so that on this panel, we will say all that. And the joy of it is that, sir, after here, you are joining Mr. President, the SGF, and all of that to discuss certain things. The Commandant General mandated me. I have 400 copies of this SOP that after here, I will take it myself to put in your booth so that you will extend it and it will factor in the considerations at that ministerial arrangement for enhanced safety and security of schools in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It is on this note that, sir, I thank you for the privilege to serve as the pioneer of the center. Thank you.